Hey kiddos, we are getting closer to the end of the book. Right now, they were at the wedding, and her dad and her new stepmom just found her and Shar being silly together. So that's where we were. Chapter 22. After a final awkward bow, Shar left us. "You have made another conquest, Ella," Father said. "The prince wouldn't," Hattie began. I interrupted. "I haven't made any conquests. Your mushroom made the other one. Besides, soon Shar, the prince, leaves to spend a year in Athoria." "My darling, must we remain in this drafty hall?" Mum Olga extended her lower lip in an absolute pout like this. "Sweetness, you're cold. We'll go in at once," Father said, and draped his cloak over Mum Olga's shoulders. In the coach, I was wedged between Hattie and Olive, uncomfortable, but warmed by their bulk. Across from me, Mum Olga turned eagerly to Father. "Before, it would have been wrong to ask, but now I may, my dearest. How rich are we?" "Why, just as rich as we were before. Silly goose. Did you think weddings caused our coffers to grow?" He put his arm around her shoulder. No, dear," she pouted again. "I only wanted to know." "Now you do." "I may be just a silly goose, but I don't know. I mean, I know how much I have, but I don't know how much we have together." Now, if you remember, what's the issue? He doesn't have any money. Yikes. Father faced her and put both hands on her shoulders. "My love, you must be brave." I braced myself. "I came to you, a poor man, with only myself to offer. I hoped it would be enough." She touched his cheek. "You are just enough for me." Then her words reached her. "Poor? What do you mean, poor?" "Poor is someone, or sometimes a figure of speech." "What do you mean by poor?" she said. I'm going to turn the light because it's really dark. "From my ruin, I salvaged my clothes and Ella's a little more." "Mama," cried Hattie, "I warned you. She wailed. "What will we tell people? I knew Ella." She was drowned out by Mum Olga's wails. "You didn't love me. You deceived me, my love," she said. He drew her against him. She sobbed into his cloak. "Are we poor?" Olive asked, her voice rising in panic. "Is our money gone? Will we starve and have nothing else to eat?" "Hush, Olive," Hattie said. "We're not poor. Ella's poor. We must pity her, not us." But she was interrupted again. Mum Olga had stopped crying and pushed herself out of Father's arms. She reached across the coach and pawed at me, ripping my ridicule from my waist. "What's in here?" She dumped its contents on her lap. Coins, jewels, only a comb and a handkerchief. But she examined the comb. "Silver. I guess I'll keep it." She tossed the purse back at me and then lunged again. The carriage lurched while she clamped onto my bracelet and attempted to pull it off my arm. I tried to push her away and she held on fast. Father pulled her off of me and held her hand in mine. "Olga," he said, "we love each other. What else matters? Besides, when I travel again, I'll earn back all what I've lost and more." She paid no attention. I will not live like this. I will not live in a poor house. Your daughter can earn her keep." "Olga, my heart, I expect Ella to be treated with respect," Father said. "She is not to be a servant in her own home. Do you understand, my sweet?" Mum Olga nodded, but she sent me a look of pure evil. "Mama, I hoped when we were richer we could—" A footman opened the carriage door and we had arrived back at my new home. My trunk was carried through the shadowy hallway to a guest room that was richly furnished but very dark. The chambermaid lit 3 lamps, which illuminated but not lightened the effect. She turned down the bedclothes and left me. I wished Mandy could come and say goodnight, but she wouldn't arrive from our old home until the next day. I was alone with my fears. What would happen to her? How would Mom Olga punish me for Father's deception? And how soon would Hattie resume her tyranny over me, meaning her awfulness that she does? I didn't have to wait long for Hattie. She issued her first order the next day. She gave it to me when one of the manservants called out that Shar had been calling. He'd come to see me, but she told me to keep in my room while she entertained him. You'll only be in my way, my dear. He wants me. You'll be in my way, I said. Go to your room, Ella. She patted Mother's necklace. The prince belongs to me and only me. In my room, I banged on the floor, hoping Shar would come to investigate the noise. But the wall and the floor were too thick for him to hear. Afterward, she said, at first, he may have wanted to see you, but I won him over. When he bid me goodbye, he said our conversation would stay in his memory forever. She's a liar. He came the next day, and I was again confined to my room. I passed half the time of his visit standing at my door, trying to force myself to emerge from the room and from the curse. The other half I spent at the window watching him. When he left, I glanced back for a final view of our manor. I started to wave, but he turned away. An entry from the journal appeared in my magic book the night he left for Athoria. He had seen me. Ella is avoiding me. Twice I visited her house, only to be told she was out. On both days, her stepsister, Hattie, said Ella would return shortly, so I waited for hours, but she never came. When I gave up yesterday, I looked back for a last glimpse of her manor, since I couldn't have a last glimpse of her. But there she was, standing at an upstairs window. I should have returned immediately and insisted on seeing her, but I was too confused. Why was she there? Why was she hiding from me? Was she angry? If she was, she should have come into the drawing room and told me herself. I thought her forthright enough to do so. I resolved to visit again in the evening and demand to see her. But when I got home, Mother had a surprise family party waiting for me to bid me farewell, and I couldn't leave. This morning I would have gone too, but Father was impatient to be off, and there was no defying him. Perhaps she's embarrassed about sliding down the stair and blaming me for encouraging her to do it. Perhaps her father and his new wife were displeased. I wanted to tell her about the afternoon I spent flying down the stairs at home, never noticing the gradual shedding of my breeches. That would have made her laugh. She makes me laugh so easily. I always wish to return the favor, always wanting to make her laugh too. Instead, I had to listen while Hattie chattered endlessly. I don't know how she managed to pour the words out while smiling so hard, revealing the largest teeth I'd ever seen. She must be excellent at cracking nuts. This is unkind of me. Her teeth are on the large side, nothing exceptional. The youngest stepsister, Olive, said little, but the little was astonishing. She wanted to know whether people had to give me their wealth if I told them to. When I asked her why, if I'd want to take my subjects' money, she was surprised. To become richer, she said, and she said it as though she was stating an obvious fact and that I was stupid for not knowing. All this I endured while Ella hid, and now I will never see her again. Well, at least not for a year. I had to write him. I had to write him. If he thought I was angry, he might never write to me. But how could I explain my behavior? The guest room I occupied was supplied with writing paper, ink, and a pen. I trimmed the pen and found that I didn't know how to begin. I would call him Char quite easily, but writing it was another matter. Dear Char, looked disrespectful on the page. Dear Prince Charmant, or Dear Your Highness, seemed too formal. And how would I conclude? Yours truly and sincerely seems stiff, while your friends seem childish. Omitting the situation, I began. I would be addressing to him, so there would be no mistake. I have been confined to my room. I saw you come to visit and saw you leave. I waved, but you must have not seen. Father is mad at me. It had nothing to do with you. He was insulted that I left the wedding early. 2 more days remained to my sentence. Now that you are gone and I can no longer hope to tell you goodbye, it is terrible. I hope you will still write to me, and not only about Erthoria. I have many questions, most of them very important. When you were a boy, did you study with other children, or did you have tutors all to yourself? I suspect that you were equally wonderful at all subjects, but were you? Who took care of you when you were small? When did you discover you were a prince and you would be king someday? What did the knowledge mean to you? If my questions offend you, please do not answer any of them. I went on to tell him about my years before Mother died, games with Mother and Mandy, and tastes of tonic, listening to fairy stories. I omitted only the most important facts, Lucinda's gift, and that Mandy was a fairy too. Then I promised. In my next letter, I should tell you more about finishing school and the elves and my Erythian friends. If you write quickly, I shall also send Mandy. If you write quickly, I shall also send Mandy's and my recipe for a roly-poly pudding. Ew. Cooking is another of my accomplishments, although not taught at finishing school. You may try the recipe and astound your hosts. If you do write, pray do not address the letter to me or mark them to show that you are a correspondent. Direct the letter to Mandy. She'll see that I get them. You are shocked that I have proposed to do this. My only hope is that one who flies down a stairwell as beautifully as you do can overcome anything. As my Erythian friend would say, Aduma unessa uthasa unduro, or please write soon. I closed with your impatient friend Ella. Somehow the adjective made it less childish. I went back to the beginning and addressed Dear Char. But how on earth would I address the letter? I had no idea where he was staying. In the end, I directed it to the royal family in Erytha and prayed that it fell into helpful hands. Now I could only wait for his reply. In the meantime, what would I have to do and what would I endure from my new step family? Dun dun dun! All right, we are on chapter 3. So, I think that he will respond. What do you think?